Hello again. I want to continue from where I left off with the emails that I posted from Jane Poulter of Unsigned Council regarding this unsigned achieving best evidence statement that they produced in our case, which was almost well, it was falsified, and I'll continue along the journey of that. The key witness also claimed to have never seen it. And you saw how Poulter tried to evade the question by saying it was an accepted copy, where, previously said that 3 people met to approve the statement. Clearly the person whose statement it was meant to be would have ordinarily be expected to sign it. Original kept on the file, and a copy of the signed statement should have been distributed had it had been done in an authentic way. But as I've posted videos on the channel that covers the case of how, and there's a lot more to come, how it was crafted out of some notes, and as I challenged it throughout the proceedings, the allegations evolved and retreated into vagueness, which is why it was ultimately falsified. I now want to return to another falsified, unsigned piece of evidence that was submitted, and this was allegedly a letter sent by our younger daughter to Rachel Hudson. This was concealed from us during the case, and I provide an explanation of that from Jane Poulter herself, which doesn't stack up with the evidence which I will show you now. It shows that Jane Poulter isn't being candid. Firstly, this letter was, Poulter said, was written by younger daughter. It wasn't. It was a typed narrative written in words that are not associated with our younger daughter, not words that she'd used. You can see it. You will post it in time. I have to talk to the distributors about how that'll be done, because it's actually quite a key piece of the work we've done, and there's commonality with other cases as well. It was typed. It was been analysed with with lots of emails we received from the social worker Donna Grant, and you can see there's a massive correlation, between the language used in the emails to us and the informal basis and how this letter was constructed. It was also constructed in a way of which to try to deal with some key aspects of the associated family law legislation. So it was extremely crafted. Anybody would be able to see that. It was most obvious. But notice Poulter says that nobody party to the case saw the letter, and it was private and confidential and so on and so forth. But this is an email we received from the child guardian, who ordinarily would have conducted this, being notionally independent, but they're not independent. Everybody knows that CAFCAS is a front organisation. But this is from the child guardian to my wife. In relation to your query, I have attached a letter at your request. The letter was the falsified letter produced by Donna Grant, which Poulter tried to say was written by our younger daughter. Listen to this. The letter was not completed with me, which would normally be expected, but was completed with the allocated social worker at the time, Miss Donna Grant, who forwarded the letter to me as information only. As such, it was her responsibility to share the letter with her legal representative, who would then subsequently share with the judge. So either Grant didn't do that, which I don't believe, at least he would have shared it with the legal representative. So it doesn't sit well with what Poulter is saying. This letter was falsified. It was unsigned. Bearing in mind, it's private and confidential. So they can't spin it and say, younger daughter didn't want to sign it because he didn't want to upset you, because they're saying that we've never meant to see it. during the proceedings. And it was a private letter. So they can't play both sides of that. So there's no reason why a girl of that age at the time, 9-year-old, very articulate, very capable of writing, very capable of signing a name, couldn't have written that letter herself. It was typed, it was unsigned, and no crayon scribbles at the bottom, which were inconsequential. They were just indecipherable. It just could have been any child. Could have been, probably, it looked more like a toddler, and we were publishers at the time. So you can see this trend of the manufacture and falsification of evidence, and very, very key evidence at that. And Rachel Hudson accepted a falsified, unsigned statement from the key witness' older daughter, who subsequently claims to have never seen it. Nobody's ever produced a signed copy, despite the disclaimer at the bottom saying one would be produced. The letter from younger daughter, clearly falsified, unsigned, and even Jane Poulter's account doesn't sit with the child guardian's account. She said they never saw it, wasn't shared to any part of the case, and yet it was conducted with the allocated social worker, where it really should have been done with the child guardian, who is at least meant to be independent. So you can see there's extremely serious issues here. This is why, as we've delved into this practice of the falsification of evidence and it being very obvious and also accepted by judges who are extremely partisan to local authorities, is endemic throughout the system. It's not uniform. There are some that are good, and there are variations from district to district, but it's endemic, and you don't have to look far to look at it. And we've seen many examples of this, spoken to people, and you can even find accounts yourself. You won't have to search very far. And this is what happens when you make a system opaque. And this is a sad reality of the situation, because the safeguards that are given to this system are designed to protect children, and with good reason. But they've been grossly abused. The opacity has been abused, and it's allowed the festering of corruption. And you add into that the explosive growth of private equity and the links between the local authority, which are able to draw down on what is essentially quite variable finance in terms of taking children and supporting these cases. So they can turn it almost into a profit centre. And then effectively the children get packaged up as financial assets and traded with private equity owned fostering agencies. And if you think, what they have done to our younger daughter is horrendous. It shows you the immorality of people and what they will do for money. Because I couldn't do this. I couldn't go home and reconcile doing things like this. And I've shown you they have destroyed her Polish heritage. They've done everything possible to weaken the attachment between our younger daughter and ourselves. And we had a beautiful relationship. We had wonderful memories and pictures, and they destroyed that just to turn her into a financial asset to be traded with private equity. And you are looking at, we see it all the time. If you look at this is a different scale. I'm not making like for like, but your Pete Hegseth and your Donald Trumps and your Benjamin Netanyahu's, regarding this war with Iran, which never should have happened. There's no justification for it at all. And you've seen the indifference to the death of people, in particular children. And I would say on both sides. And just the sheer indifference to it, and you see the immorality, what people will do for money is quite nauseating, and it's exposing this that has brought this police state terror to our door. Northumbria police are, as my videos shown, we dismantled their Pink Panther policing and the pretext he used to seize our devices and to terrorise us. They are merely an instrument of the coordinated coercion that I've covered for quite some time. And if you, for instance, if you think about it, there's already enough evidence for them to have made the appropriate referrals for gross abuse of office and corruption pertaining to Rachel Hudson and also South Tyneside Council. There is already sufficient evidence to show that there's been racism and cultural genocide. Deliberately destroying somebody's heritage and culture is cultural genocide. And they have not been in touch with my wife and I, despite there being compelling evidence of wrongdoing, because they cannot do it because they are an instrument of the coordinated coercion that I've suffered, mainly me, and more latterly my wife. And Ingalls, in the way she approached the tantrum, the way she approached the complaint, Adam Lloyd, the officers who interviewed me, they're going to have to release all this footage in time, and we'll publish it and show you, because you need to see how the police have been weaponized to suppress what is the revelation of extraordinary levels of corruption. Same with the FCA. Again, we are right on both of these. There is extreme corruption in the family court, and it has to be considered with this explosive growth of private equity in terms of wanting to get their hands on children and long-term government-backed cash flows, and why it's incentivized people to break up families rather than put them together and emotionally sterilize children to oil that wicked transaction. And similarly with the FCA, it is undeniable that there is a conflict of interest in their role as regulator and prosecutor, and they have, and that conflict leads to very bad outcomes for the victims of financial scandals. I've shown that, in terms of wealth tech, it's the breadth of it. It's quite a special case. It's the breadth of the failure and the duration of the failure, which shows that the Financial Conduct Authority grossly failed people, and I've used this dual role as regulator and prosecutor to engage in obfuscation and avoid accountability. That's suited now to governments who have been keen to push this growth agenda with financial services, instead of stepping back saying, no, we need to fix this regulatory system, then we'll go for growth. Very clearly, the regulation of the financial market should sit within HM Treasury to make it directly accountable to Parliament, not outside it like it is now. And there needs to be a complete separation between the regulation, the investigation bit, and the prosecution bit. These to be separated so you can get to grips with regulatory failure very, very quickly. Otherwise you just get years of obfuscation and never get to the bottom of anything. Actually, when my temper started to fray when we were getting this coordinated coercion, and I emailed, I think, Middleditch, the FCA, and published this in time in October of last year, and I said, you go and you look at your case files for Woodford, and you see the legal advice around the scheme of arrangement, in terms of why that was the route taken. And essentially what had happened with Woodford is that the FCA had full visibility right the way throughout the process. Woodford himself published monthly full portfolio data until the crisis unfolded. Then they had to withdraw it because of liquidity issues. That's quite understandable. And the FCA would have had visibility of what Link were doing in terms of suspending the fund and ultimately deciding to close it. And so they watched the process right the way throughout. And had they have launched a legal case against Link, Link would have said, well, you had full visibility, so why didn't you step in at any time if you thought consumers were at risk of harm? So, and my challenge to the FCA is, if I'm wrong, publish your legal advice around that scheme of arrangement and Woodford, because the victims of that scandal deserve to see the advice you acted upon, and how ultimately the fact that you were at fault as well meant that you couldn't take legal action against Link. So they won't do that, of course, for the reasons I've just explained. And fundamentally, it's the scale, it's just the inconvenience of what I've shown in these videos, that there's immense corruption in the financial system in terms of how this this wicked child trading model is leading into the financial system, and there's this terrible conflict of interest with the regulator, how that leads to bad outcomes to the victims of scandal. You put them together, they all lead to the financial system, and it just isn't convenient for people to discuss that. That's why police state terror has come to our door. That's why they've seized our devices, and they are trying to psychologically abuse us. My wife, for instance, her device, she used it for work, and they know that, and they are deliberately trying to harm her employment prospects, her professional prospects in retaining that device. They know that full well. What they're trying to do is they're trying to use the devices to search for research conducted on the FCA, the Family Court, South Tyneside Council, and other districts and local authorities. I think when I challenged Middleditch to go and have a look at the Woodford case files, the FCA got very spooked as well, because they realised that we have really done quite a lot of in-depth research on them and received cooperation in the process. And that was the other reason why we had police state terror, and using this pretext to take away, this pretext of time machine assisted vandalism, to take away our devices. If you think about what I wrote in Lost, the Races, it's turned out actually pretty accurate, because in particular, I showed you how the FCA would obfuscate, and I've shown you, particularly in the last chapter, I said, look, Britain is at risk of drifting towards being a failed state, and there are two things that I identified. One being corruption. We've seen quite a lot of that, and the other being welfareism, and both are in the news significantly at the current time. I also said, if we saw more of this, the West is best, and the rest have to accept and be lectured by phony Western values. We would see more wars, not peace. I think that's come to pass as well. So I hope this video has added some colour. I'll continue, there's much more to come. But yes, when you shake down corruption, when you show financial regulation doesn't work, and you show some of the bad things that also lead into the financial sector, people don't like it, and the state becomes aggressive. Take care. Bye.